Good old Fizz Buzz. Today we're going to be talking about the classic interview question of Fizz Buzz. It'll be a beginner level problem. We'll solve it in this video in Python. Our code won't be too complicated. We're going to use a little bit of unit tests, some conditionals, and the modulus operator. Fizz Buzz has some pretty simple rules. We're going to take a list of numbers, and then for each number, if it's a multiple of 3, we're going to print Fizz. If it's a multiple of 5, we're going to print Buzz. If it's a multiple of 3 and 5, we're going to print Fizz Buzz. And if it's anything else, we're just going to print the number. Alright, for this first part, we're just going to show our Python environment we're using and the PyTest environment we're using. Our setup is covered in other videos, so you can check those out on the channel. And our main goal here is we really just want to get one test that we can get to run because we're going to be doing TDD on this particular problem. So we're going to want to make a test, make a code change, and make sure that it does everything that we expect it to do piece by piece. And it's alright if that first test there fails. But we can get right in and start our first test for Fizz Buzz, where we're going to deal with the case of not a multiple of 3 or not a multiple of 5. So in that case, if you remember from our requirements, we're going to go ahead and just print that text out. And so we're going to want our result to equal the incoming text. So if we pass in, say, if we pass in a number to it like 1 or 4, we should expect the string 1 or 4 back from it. And a lot of this typing here is actually done at faster than normal speed, just for the sake of so this video doesn't take forever. Sometimes it's challenging to type and have the recording going there. So now that we had our first test pass there with the not a multiple of 3 or not a multiple of 5, we can move on to our next case, which is the Fizz case, where we're going to have that multiple of 3 be there. And you notice there's an error on line 14. We'll be able to get back to that later and address that as things go. And so first I thought things were okay here. I'm like, okay, well, the test is failing, so it's good, right? After we get the implementation in, we'll find out there was actually a bug in the test later on. So the first part here is we're going to need the modulus operator for this to work. And the key thing about the modulus operator, it's that percent symbol there, is it gives you the remainder from division. So something's a multiple of something else if it has a 0 remainder when you divide by it, and so that modulus gives us that zero result there. And since we're taking this bit by bit, we're only dealing with the multiple of 3 part, and we'll get back to the multiple of 5 and the multiple of 3 and 5 in later cases here. And there, found the error. That's fixed now. All right, so the case for 5 looks pretty much the same as 3. We literally just copied it over and it updated some of the variables to have that test case. The code itself is going to look like an else if block. So you can kind of have if and then as many else ifs as you want, and then a final else block within conditional statements. And so we're going to do kind of the same thing. It's the modular. Taking the mod of it and checking for a remainder of 0. Now the case for 3 and 5 is going to be a little bit different. The order that we do things matters here. So the order is going to really come important when we're, because if we were to take just the 3 or just the 5 case first, it wouldn't reach our 3 and 5. So it's important that we put the 3 and 5 case first in our block. And if it's 3 and 5, we should take care of the Fizz Buzz combo, and if it's otherwise, we can handle the individual cases after. If we didn't do that, we would miss certain combinations coming through the code. Alright, and now we're going to be able to see as we go back that Fizz Buzz there is going to pass the test, and we're looking good. Now we got to a point where we have a working core, and we need to now run it in a loop. So the tests for this part are actually going to take a little bit longer to type. We're going to have to build them out in pieces to finally get the real test for it. But that allows us to kind of see how it's built out here and see how we get there. So the first thing we do is we're just going to start off with an empty list, and we're going to test against the length of the list. So we're not actually checking any of the elements of the list yet, but we'll start off by just making sure that we have a list and it has the right number of elements in it. And of course, it's going to start off, the test is going to fail because we're passing in an empty list, but it'll let us kind of know that we're moving in the right direction as we process a list of inputs and then pass them to our already tested Fizz Buzz implementation. So we'll go ahead and save it and see how the test goes, and it fails as expected. So now we'll go back and add an implementation and make sure it gets the right number of elements to start with. Now, it's not going to have the right values to begin with because we're just gonna piece it in piece by piece with this TDD approach. So the key thing there with range is we need to make sure that we go one beyond the number that we want to go to, just so we can get the correct number of items that we're going to be covering. So now we have the right number of items, but they don't have the right values. And so we're going to add some checks now to look more at the expected values. And so what we're doing here is we just take an array and we're just going to think in our minds of what should happen when Fizz Buzz runs manually. You notice 0 at the start of the array. 0 is technically a multiple of 3 and 5, so it gets the Fizz Buzz there. And we're really just kind of going through and setting up that test data. Now there's a little bit of cleanup here. Sometimes I can be pedantic with the code, and I realized I had inadvertently used some double quotes instead of single quotes. Lots of language switching in my world, so just a pedantic sidetrack there to clean up some of the quoting. Now at this point, to compare results, we're going to have to use the join operator. So use join on a string, and then you can pass in a collection that you want to join on. And we're just going to combine that all into one big string, and then we're going to compare that with our expected outcome with our calculated outcome. And so we see right now the expected or the actual outcome is just numbers. It doesn't match our expected outcome, so we need to go and actually call Fizz Buzz now. The good news is it's already been tested. We showed it with our other unit tests, so at least that part of the array we're gonna see is looking pretty good. And so this is kind of, this next part is more of the painful part as we make sure we have enough cases in our expected output to cover the ground for everything that's needed. I wanted to get to a full multiple of 3 and 5 for a proper Fizz Buzz there rather than just the 0, just to make sure that we reached and we've covered all the cases. The Fizz by itself, the Buzz by itself, Fizz Buzz, and then the other outcomes. Let me see that the expected outcome is getting closer there. So now it's just kind of a data entry task to get us a little farther and get us to the final count of items there. Finally, made it to that last Fizz Buzz. Oh, and the test pass. All right, sweet.